Many of these women already have their names picked out and a good handle on the business end of a whip. So you gotta wonder why they're in the pro-dom training course. I'd like to think they aren't confident in their techniques, but I'm beginning to wonder if they're here to show me up. I thought I understood my experience level as beginner, but each passing moment, I wonder if there's a lower level to start from, perhaps pre-beginner, a nice shallow end where I can watch all the other mistresses and dominatrix dunk their slaves into the murky deep end depths, using only their eyes and maybe a well-positioned eyebrow. I want that power, I think. Mistress Zeta set all his potential dominatrix in a circle, the priestess circle. I want to invite all you powerful women to work here as priestesses and goddesses at Holy Mountain. Holy Mountain isn't into words like Lady of the Evening, or even Dom, or Pro. We aren't regular sex workers here. We're priestesses. I like that. In that same line of thinking, Holy Mountain doesn't really look like a dungeon, at least any that I've seen in Disney movies. There's no stone walls or shackles in plain sight. It really just looks like a fancy loft, a place I actually feel more uncomfortable in than I probably would in a dungeon. However, there are some things that aren't in your run-of-the-mill city loft apartment space. There are cages and ropes, and a huge toilet for a human toilet. Everything is hidden, and what isn't is very tasteful. All gray and lavender, very soothing and expensive. I'm not really the fancy loft kind or the professional dominatrix type, if there is one, but I needed the money, and I like a challenge. It's a business. I mean, the whole dom thing. I see through the priestess hoo-ha. We're in-call professionals at this lofty dungeon, and after we give Mistress Zeta a cut of our earnings, we make about $200 a session. So, lack of natural ability aside, this is the job for me. Clearly. I'm so broke I have to steal toilet paper. In fact, I stole some from this very dungeon about 10 minutes before the training began. But basking in the lavender priestess light, I realized those days are behind me. Mistress Zeta had quiet power. She was the crystal-wearing type. The other girls looked like suicide girls or gothic sluts, whichever term you prefer. I myself was wearing overalls and several pairs of socks. I felt overdressed. Ladies, I'd like you to all use your priestess names from here on out. I truly don't know anything about practicality, and this was case in point. I hadn't thought this far into it. In preparation, I didn't get any outfits, nor did I think about a professional name. Instead, I practiced. I yelled at my refrigerator, I humiliated my pillow, I teased the sofa. You frigid bitch. You're just so soft, aren't you? So soft. I could just sit on you. I stomped on the floor and tried on being, sexy and mean. I was attempting to achieve the magical balance between psychotic mommy dearest and the boyish cruelty of a young Matt Dillon. I had to stop after cajoling the oven. It was no use. I'd have to get trained. However, I wasn't anticipating a naming situation. Evidently, the other mistresses were. Mistress Magdalene, Lady Isabel, Mistress Mara, all these mistresses ready to go. Just pick a name based on your inspiration, your character, your priestess calling. I had to go with the flow. Just pick a name, like it was so simple. I closed my eyes and envisioned my true nature. I was Rusty James in Rumblefish, wanting to be in this gang, but only possessing the desire, the guts, and not the brains or know-how. So, I was born Mistress Rusty James. They looked adequately disgusted with me, and shortened it for me to Mistress James. But I wasn't the only clueless priestess. Soon, all sorts of confusion erupted around the circle.
How many slaves expect us to eat shit?
Mistress Magdalene, upon her wealth of shit-eating questions, was revealed as clueless as to the whole point of being a dominatrix. I was thrilled. I had a shit-eating grin on my face to honor both the clueless Mistress Magdalene and the dumbstruck Mistress Zeta. Mistress Zeta was patient at first. No, Mistress Magdalene, you never have to eat shit. You never have to do anything you don't want to. This is about pleasing yourself. They do what you want them to. Mistress Magdalene rephrased.
I just wanted to know what happens if they tell me to eat brown.
Mistress Zeta's eyebrows narrowed, then raised dramatically, then narrowed again, conveying their own secret messages to the shit-eaters in the room. So around this time, Mistress Magdalene broke open a bottle of wine she had stashed in her spare boots. I was looking better. Every minute, the gloating was doing wonderful things for my complexion.
Because I'm not going to eat shit. I mean, I don't think so anyway. I mean, well, how much would they pay for that? Because if I had to, go brown, I'd want to be reimbursed, for that act.
Priestesses don't have to do anything they don't want to do. In fact, if in a session you aren't sure where you see the session going, or perhaps need a moment to regroup, you may put your slave in his starting position and take priestess time for yourself. Mistress Zeta said priestess time, the same spa commercial way she said everything else. She was this dominatrix guru type. She wasn't flogging a slave. She was getting her inner goddess pampered. I needed her brain in my brain, pronto. Mistress Magdalene was drunk already. The wine disappeared as magically it disappeared in the first place. I was processing the notion of timeouts during sessions, doing the math on how many I could possibly take without the slave feeling ripped off when the slaves arrived. The slaves came in, completely naked. I felt even more overdressed. They all called themselves Jeff. It wasn't any fair, this fake name business. Their fake names were boring and bound to confuse me. I was having a hard enough time answering to Mistress Rusty James. All the slaves were alike, all white, all the same height, all with the same mushroom-capped penises. It had been a good 5 years since I saw a penis. In real life, I didn't remember them looking like little doorknobs, round cartoon character noses sitting where their private parts should be. We were to pair off, to do energy sharing and trust exercises. I chose the mysterious and sexy Lady Isabel, but was informed that I couldn't choose another priestess. This was America. I was a goddamn dominatrix, a goddess. I should be able to choose whoever I wanted, but no, I wouldn't even get to choose a mushroom-capped slave. They were to choose us. Typical. It was like a prison lineup. Let's say if it was, I would have been a free man and innocent. That wasn't the case, of course. All it meant was that no one chose me. It was too much. I needed priestess time already. I fled to the bathroom, harnessing my inner goddess, sashaying and nodding while I felt a strong need to whimper. Someone knocked at the door and I barked, "Priestess time!" I stared into the mirror. Any of these Jeffs would be so lucky for me to even look at them. I scowled at myself in the mirror. Then I smiled. Then I winked. Then I channeled the genius of L'Oreal marketing and whispered, "Because you're worth it," to myself in the mirror. After the pep talk, I slipped some Q-tips in my pocket to take the edge off. The energy and trust exercises were just like I remembered all trust exercises from my youth. Totally terrifying and ridiculous. I hear trust exercise and think of those trust falls. I pictured a naked slave standing with his back to me, my legs bent slightly in the strong and ready position, his whimpers reaching my ears. "Mistress James, please don't let me fall." And then I do. Of course, let him fall because he doubted me in the first place. I will be a cruel middle school bully of a mistress, and they will love me for it. But there were no trust falls. I got paired off with some Jeff, and we sat facing each other in folding chairs. We would maintain eye contact while I pinched and played with his nipples. I stared into this Jeff's eyes. They were dark pools of something intimate and open. I reached my very deliberate hand towards his chest. I raised an eyebrow. I went in for the kill, and I missed. I missed Jeff's nipples, and I missed them by a lot. But as a priestess, a pro, I didn't look away. Oh no. I maintained eye contact. I studied his look of surprise and unexpected pain as I rifled around his chest blindly like a raccoon in a trash can. And I channeled that raccoon. And I became Mistress Rusty James, raccoon priestess. I made my way to his nipples and I was gone. Every gasp or little sigh of pleasure from the Jeff's mouth left me groundless. I was in a blind trust fall. Every gasp and I was falling backwards into some place where there was no one to catch me, no reaching arms. I was falling and just falling forever with every pinch and twist and sigh. I was letting go in the darkness, away from the mistresses and the Jeffs and towards nothing. And just like that, Mistress Zeta called time. I should have had some of Mistress Magdalene's wine, that was for certain. She looked to be having a grand time. She had her wine mustache and continued pinching her Jeff's nipples, looking off into space, well after Mistress Zeta told us to stop. Mistress Zeta took me aside to tell me that both Lady Isabel and I showed promise. She asked if I'd like to administer capped. Capped? I was rapt. It sounded pretty good, not so eye contact driven. Sure, I said, completely clueless and probably a little high and stupid from the trust exercises. Capped was not a word, it turns out. It's C-A-B-T, as in cock and ball torture. The men stood in the lavender inner sanctum of the dungeon, and I watched as Mistress Zeta demonstrated and tied shoelaces around their mushroom dicks and sent them spinning like tops or New Year's Eve party favorites. Priestess time, take two! I was having a Sally Field situation. There were tears and laughter. I paced and stared at the human toilet set up in the shower. Was that always there? I started murmuring to myself the word penises. Penises whispered mid sob, laughter, get a teeth. Penises, 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 penises. I don't have a problem with penises truly, but there were too many to look at, and it had been so long since I had seen even a solitary penis. And that was a penis I had a crush on. That was a penis I loved. Princess time! I heard the knock before it even occurred. I was that in tune with the world around me. I dried off my face, tried to look like a person who just applied lipstick or took a satisfying trip to the bathroom and left to return to the dungeon. Mistress Zeta was holding a machine. It was squarish. I'm not good with electronics, but it sure looked like one. Mistress Rusty James, we were waiting for you. I thought you'd enjoy this. Jeff lay flat on the table next to the machine, flanked by priestesses. I tried to look competent and knowledgeable about the electronic square box. Mistress Zeta handed me some rubber band bracelets and an EKG-looking device. Now just put these on the base of his penis, and you can put the sticky parts on his testicles. Sure! Mistress Zeta was cruel, man. This was her line of work. Give the job to the lesbo. I kept nodding enthusiastically and tried to have surgeon hands. Make sure not to pinch. We only want the good pain here. Putting a bracelet around testicles is not as easy as it sounds. Pulling that bracelet taut is also difficult. My hands were sweaty, his business was sweaty, and I kept pulling my hands away as if darting from a feisty tiger. There was some yelling on his part and a lot of empathetic cooing from the priestesses on the behalf of our pinched Jeff. Finally, he was completely accessorized. Now, have you done work with electricity before? Basically, he was hooked up to an electrocution device. I could program it to be light or hard, vary the rhythms and degrees of pain. It could even be hooked up to an iPod or a microphone. Everyone played with the rhythms. I was starting to itch for more priestess time when Mr. Zeta handed me the microphone. Here, have a go. I stood next to Jeff's electrified penis and testicles. I lowered myself onto a chair so I was eye level with the spectacle. I opened my mouth and closed it. What do I say to a slave's penis? I was tongue-tied. What would a mistress say? I closed my eyes, and the words came. Hey, mama, say the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. Led Zeppelin's Black Dog poured from me. I sang my heart out. Jeff writhed around on the table. I knew all the words, and Mistress Zeta and the other priestesses were silent. Didn't take too long for I found out what people mean by down and down. After my performance, we were done with the day's trainings. I don't know how it happened, but everyone said they would work with me again. I took one last priestess time in the bathroom. I was exhausted. I could feel my creation rising and falling inside my chest, a sighing Rusty James, my heart going that fast. I left the loft and took the long way home. Me and Rusty James walking with the wind. I knew I'd never be back. I had other things to do. If I could manage to somehow trick those slaves into thinking I was in control, that I was powerful, imagine what I could do for my own self. I was as broke as ever, but this time I felt broken half, flung wide open to something new. Thank you.